Welcome back my team. Third party interviews questions. As you can see, two questions are written on the word format. Can you explain the third party life cycle and how do you perform a third party risk assessment? These are the two questions I have received on email by one of my subscribers. So today we will discuss in detail that what is the life cycle and how do you perform a third party risk assessment. So start with the answer number one. Okay, life cycle of the third party. Life cycle of third party. Okay, so from where actually the thing of third party starts and till what is the position of the completion of the third party. So multiple phases are there if we talk about the life cycle. So starts with the planning phases. Who is supposed to plan? Business supposed to plan. Okay, so business to plan that what is the requirement, okay, or what is the requirement of service, we can say, right? Okay, let's take example here. Okay, we require okay, you are in a business team and you are a key member of deciding the requirements, and you are supposed to hire courier services, right? Courier services. Okay, and you are working in a BFSI organization and you require a courier services. Okay, so this is your planning phase. After that you release a tender. Phase number two. Okay, you released a tender. How to release the tender? By raising RFP. RFP is a request for proposal. Okay, where all the details, all the requirements are mentioned in that RFP, like what is the nature of service, okay, and what is the locations, right? How many resources you require, okay, etc. All these details should be mentioned in RFP. RFP is a short form of request for proposal. So this is the phase number 2. Okay, after releasing, okay, there may be another question arises here. Okay, what are the platforms from where you raise the tender, right? You can raise the tender on your official website, and right, you may take help from marketing companies as well, or any third parties, okay, or any business newspaper, and whatever are the public connectors, you may take help from anyone, like your official website. You can take help from marketing companies as well, or you can say advertising organizations as well, or advertising companies. Okay, great. Now come to the phase number 3. Okay, after after releasing the tender, for example, 4 invitations you received. Okay, 4 invitations, named as vendor 1, named as vendor 2, named as vendor number 3. So these are the invitations you received after releasing the RFP. So I can also say that these all three vendors are the potential third parties who supposed to promise to complete the services in requirement. Okay, great. Stage number 4, phase number 4. As you know, you received all three vendors' request as an invitation form. After this, you request all vendor 1, vendor 2 and vendor number 3 for assessment. Now, assessment comes under two types, right? You may request for vendor assessments. Vendor assessments means, right, assessments would be complete in two phases. Number one is the documentation phase. Documentation phase means you need to review the policies, you need to review the SOPs, okay, you need to review the SOPs and you need to review all the additional documents provided by the vendors. Okay, so this is the stage number one. Stage number two would be application compliance check. Application compliance check. Okay, stage one, I'm just mentioning here number A, and here as application check I'm just mentioning as number B. Okay, under documentation phase you need to review the policies, right? What are the policies you need to review? It we will discuss in the question number 2. That's why I had added all these two questions. Okay, great. You need to review the SOPs or you need to review additional documents provided by the vendors. Second phase, application compliance check. Okay, why we require to check the application compliance, especially because whatever are the data vendor is consuming from us, right? So they may host our data in their environment. So what is the status of application, right? What is the health level of that application? We need to check, we need to review. That's why application compliance check is required. So this is why compliance application level verification is required. Okay, so these two phases you need to complete. Okay, so I can also say that okay, vendor 1, vendor 2 and vendor 3, all three vendors need to provide these two phases. They need to undergo by these two phases. Okay, after completion, okay, I had assessed vendor 1, okay, I had assessed vendor 2 and I had assessed vendors. Okay, so vendor 1, for example, I am satisfied with vendor 1. Okay, why? Because all policies and compliances check in place. Okay, for vendor 2 I am not satisfied, so I made a risk report and mark the negative comments that why this vendor rejected, or justification I had mentioned in that report. Okay, vendor number 3 I also satisfied. Let's take example. I also satisfied because all the policies and compliances are on the table. So at the final stage, guys, right, I have two vendors, vendor 1 and vendor number 3. Okay, but the budget level, for example, budget level of vendor 1 is high. So because I need to also focus on the budget part as well, so I had selected the vendor number 3. Vendor number 3 has onboarded. Why? Because of the budget parts. However, they fulfill all the request, but the budget of the vendor 1 is high. That's why I go for the vendor number 3. Okay, after this vendor number 3 onboarded, right? Okay, next stage number, what is the stage number we need to mention here? Stage number 5. Stage number 5. Stage number 5, because you know vendor has onboarded, so stage number 5 is the DD check. What is DD check? DD check is the due diligence check. In due diligence check, right, we need to again reassess the vendor. Why again need to reassess the vendor? Because it's a policy of organization that every organization or every vendor, you can say, every vendor need to go security check in every 1 year or 2 year, let's say. It's depend on the organization's policy. Okay, so every vendor need to go security check in every 1 or 2 years. So this is the client policies. That's why the due diligence check is required. Okay, in due diligence again you need to check the vendor's documentations part. Same thing, phase 1 phase A, this one phase 1 phase 2. Again you need to verify the documentation phase and applications compliance check every year, or every once in a 2 year you need to review the vendors as a due diligence phase. Okay, and what is the stage number 6? Stage number 6 is the end of end of end of suppliers, or end of tenure. End of tenure, guys, don't go for the accuracies of spelling, please. End of tenure. If vendor is supposed to terminate their services, or their timeline is going to end, or vendor is not interested to provide the services to client, right, then then they can turn off the services by giving a notice period of approximately 1 year. Okay, if vendor 3 is supposed to terminate, for example terminate, right, then again they need to, again vendor need to undergo a assessment. Why need to go the assessment? Because, right, because client has to remove the data, okay, from vendor's environment. Secondly, legal works also needs to done between parties. Okay, so these are the few things. That's why the vendor needs to go, or we can say that full and final. Okay, what's under full and F and F? F and F means, right, any due fees, example, right, due payment. Okay, and other settlements, etc., are to be decided in the last phase when vendor comments that they are not interested to provide the services. So if I can summarize the phases, so phase 1 is the planning phase. I am just repeating once again. Phase 2 is the tender, releasing of tender phase, this one. Okay, phase 3 is the invitations. Okay, phase 4 is the assessment. You can check here, assessments, by vendor assessments. You can say assessment could be done in 2 phases, documentation phase and the applications phase. Okay, next phase is the DD check, means due diligence assessment. Okay, stage 6 is the end of life or end of tenure or the termination phases, where last assessment is to done. So this is the phases of the third party risk management. I hope you got the point. If still you have any query, guys, you can make your comments. Next question: how do you perform a third party risk assessment? Yes, this life cycle is an outline of the third party, but performance, how do we execute the third party risk assessment, right? It's a it's a bit deep technical questions. Let me write the question number 2 here. Okay, how do you perform the third party assessment? So let's begin the answer. We can start the assessment of the third party by taking care of few things. Number one is the first you need to think, right, what is the scope of service? What is the scope of service, right? If scope of service is it's better to take an example. Okay, you have, for example, three vendors: vendor 1, vendor 2, vendor number 3. Okay, vendor number 1 is providing the admin services. Admin services includes, right, different services, plus cab services, okay, and furniture services, or you can say cleaning staff provider. As you can see here, vendor 1 is very liberal in terms of the critical of data, because they are processing only PII data. What is PII? PII is a personal identifiable information. Okay, so only PII data is being transferred to vendor by the client. You can see we can treat this vendor as a low category. Why? Because the criticality of data is not much severe. Why? Because only PII like name, phone numbers, address are processing by the vendor. That's why. Okay, coming to the vendor 2 part. Okay, vendor 2 is a okay, vendor 2 is a, for example, email provider, and laptop provider. Okay, if email provider is there, okay, that means all encryption and this email protection would be taken care by the vendor too, and they are providing the laptop also. So all the basic configurations part would be treated by the vendor laptop provider. So they are processing the PII data, okay, and since they are provider of email as well, so all the internal information of client, right, they have visibility. Okay, and since they are also providing the laptop, that means the configurations part and all would be taken care by the vendor itself. So this vendor we can treat as a high category. Okay, last vendor is a vendor number 3 is a critical vendor. Why critical vendor? Because they are providing the payroll services. Example, you know how important payroll services is for any organization employees. So vendor number 3 processing the PII data. Okay, they are processing the bank account details, they are processing the form 16, they are processing the income tax details, they are processing the medical deduction records. Okay, etc. So as you can see, complete control of employees data vendor 3 is managing. That's why vendor 3 is considered as a critical vendor here. I hope you got the point. Okay, so if I come back to my question was how you perform a third party. So I will discuss all the 3 vendors, that from where we can start. That's why I took a different severity categories of vendor. Vendor 1, you can see very liberal data they are collecting and treated as a low category. Okay, so assessment would be treated as low, or we can say only documentations part would be enough. Why? Because they are only collecting the PII data. Okay, and if something mishappened, then there would be no impact because the data is not critical for vendor number one. That's why this vendor is treated as a low category. Okay, one important note, guys. Important note. Vendor is not critical. It doesn't mean that we are giving any compromise in terms of the compliance level. Please note. If even vendor one having very low category data and treated as a low category as from the client side, but they are collecting the PII data. One important point to be noted here: all necessary standards, example GDPR or CCPA, whatever are the data privacy vendor is applicable, they need to comply with that. I repeat, if vendor is in low state we had decided to put in, that doesn't mean that we are compromising with vendor. No, all the standards should be requested from a vendor, like all the certifications, example SOC 2, NIST if there, or ISO 27001 is there, or related to the data privacy. All things we need to request from vendor. Very important point. Vendor number 2 is email provider. Yes, since this is a high category vendor, you can check. So full reviews required. Correct. Okay, what comes under full reviews required? As I had mentioned earlier, right? Assessment would be done in two phases: under documentation phase and application compliance check. Under documentation phase, right, whatever are the policies document, they need to send. Okay, what are the policies document, right? You need to send the governance policies document, right? You need to send the audit related things, right? How you are managing the risk management, you need to send those, right? You need to send the security risk management policies, right? Security incident management policies, right? You need to send the access control policies management, right? Your password management, okay? Your encryption, how you are managing, okay? Encryption level, okay? How you are managing the SDLC life cycle, okay? How you are managing the BCPDR, okay? And how you are managing the network parameters, etc. All these policies documents you require from the vendor. If vendor is supposed to provide a high or medium or severe service to you, this is the policy documents. I had just given a sample of the policy documents. You may request for more documents as well, depending on your internal organization's policies. Okay, now second, what is the second thing? Second is the application compliance check. Okay, what need to check with the applications? Okay, under applications, let me copy from here. Okay, under applications compliance check, right, you need to review that. Okay, how application developed. Guys, my request, please don't go for the accuracy of spelling. How application developed, okay? How application developed, okay? Where secure codes are hosted, okay? Whoever are the access over secure codes, okay? Who employees are able to access the secure codes. Apart from this, right? Okay, uh, what are the phases of application you tested in testing environment. Okay, right? What is the encryption level of application? Okay, how application is treated as data in motion or transit or data at rest. Okay, so you need to ensure that these all things you need to check while you are reviewing the application's health, because client data is going to host it on their environment, right? So how application is behaving, how secure codes are hosted, whoever are the access, what are the phases of application you have tested in that, okay, the change request, the encryptions level, okay, how application is treated as a data in motion and data at rest. These all things you need to review as part of application compliance check. As I had mentioned here, just going to mark a bold this one. These whatever are the checks you had mentioned in the mention for vendor number 2 till here, same thing you need to mention for the vendor number 3. Vendor number 3, let me copy vendor number 2, okay, from this one. Same thing you need to review the vendor number 3 as well, but in a more strict manner, because they are processing the very critical data. And also you need to have a continual improvement of all these vendors who process the critical data. I hope the concept is very clear. Okay guys, if you are looking for GRC training, if you are looking for ISO 27001, if you require support in NIST, if you require support in SOC 2, if you require support in TPRM, if you are required support in PCI, if you require support in GDPR, or whoever are the security frameworks you are looking for, you can keep loop me. Currently we are at the phase of third party risk management as a training to the subscribers requesters. If you require the training in GRC and ISO 01, NIST, SOC 2, TPRM, PCI, GDPR, let me know in comments. Okay, so guys, I hope these videos which I am publishing really helping you in your interview sessions. Apart from this guys, if you require support in interview preparations or interview tricks, okay, let me know. One-to-one connects is available if you are taking support from me. Every type of discussions, what is your problem area, we will discuss in detail, or you can keep in touch and let me know what is your requirement from me. You can please post your comment on the comment box, or you can also email me on Rajbir Singh aug@gmail.com. So guys, thank you so much. Have a nice day.